Hello everyone, very good morning. Thank you for taking your time and coming to our webinar today. And we'll be talking about the production planning with the help of the product called DTX. So let me just give a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Shishir R. Murthy. So I'm the product owner here looking after the development of the DTX product. And we like are looking at defining a digital thread tool, which basically helps us connect systems across. I'll talk more about it as I come to the next part of it. And just to give quick glance on my experience, so I have worked with Beacon for past roughly 7.5 years, and have been engaged with multiple clients who are into special purpose machines, custom consumer goods, and a lot more. So I've worked with these clients to define PLM and ERP integration solutions. So just a quick intro to what I do and how long I've associated with Peacon. Now, as we go forward with the today's session for the next coming 40 minutes or so, we'll be looking at what are the key challenges that comes when it comes to production planning, and we'll give a quick introduction to what DTX is so that we can come to know how DTX would help you in solving these challenges. Subsequently, we'll see on how we can do and achieve this with the help of the, by defining it from the level of design, which is working with the CAD and ERP systems, where the data primarily resides, which are required for the project planning. Then subsequently follow up, go through and see how we can define these uh, production planning routes and optimize the overall production planning process. And we will also see what else are there in the offering when it comes to the DTX solution, so that if you're interested in any other challenges within the organization that you would wish to overcome, we can help you with those, and you can reach out to us on those parts. Now, quickly, I would like to understand what the audience that we have here. So we'll quickly start with the very first poll here, which is to understand what all challenges do you currently face when it comes to production planning, so that I can concentrate on those aspects uh, during the session. We'll keep the poll open for next 30 seconds. I request everyone in the audience to quickly update that. Now, quickly we'll change to the next poll. So this just to understand like how you're currently working within your organization. So I request you to quickly update this as well. Basically, we're trying to understand what kind of systems do you have within you, so that I can concentrate on those aspects of the solution when we talk about into the session. We'll keep the poll open for the next 10 seconds. Can you? I request everyone in the audience to quickly update the polls before we close. Okay. So we see a mixed reaction here, like wherein 50% of you are mostly working with all manual, where including part numbering and item master, everything is manual. Rest another 35% are close to having an item master for their in their ERP and part numbering to manage them, but the production planning remains manual. And finally, we have another 20% where you have ERP managing most of your orders and everything, but only the scheduling is part that you're looking at to digitize. So fine, well, I'll try to keep the things in line with these results that we have received, so that we can talk more on this and have a more engaging session as we go forward. So let's look at the key challenges that we see in production. So see, considering that most of the production planning now, based on the pool that we got, is that you have everything is manually done. So you might be come across these very common ones, which is where you miss deadlines or you have back orders, where you're finding it hard to schedule and define the resources which are required to get the optimum output, and also understand how maintaining the resources cycle time, the maintenance time, the availability of labels, and all these activities. And also the workflows, sometimes it could become very, where it could become the bottleneck overall. The whole point of workflow is a process that's defined within the system or the organization, within the organization, is to have a smooth flow. But sometimes those workflows, if not done right, could become a bottleneck for us at the end of the day and lead to a lot of these delays and backlogs. Now, this is where the DTX, the solution that we're going to see today, would be helping you in solving the issue and with regards to production planning. So, just to give a quick introduction on what DTX is. So, DTX stands for Digital Transformation for Excellence. It's a product that has been designed and developed by Beacon. So, Beacon has been in the industry of serving our customers with several suite of products for the last 2 decades. And based on our experience, we have built this solution called DTX, which helps in building a digital thread. So just to give a quick intro of what digital thread is, it's basically a digital connection between every data point that you have in your system or in your organization. Okay. So you basically digitize everything that you do. So whatever Word, Excel, or anything that you're doing manually that you record for can be digitized, and then that can be connected to one data point. Like the example could be like the moment you get the orders for your product, right, from the sales, and it goes to ERP, and if not ERP, you would maintaining a purchase order, sales order, the stuff, and then connecting it to the designs, okay, or the activity that the design team performs. Later, transferring it into MRP, procurement, production scheduling, and subsequently delivering it to the customer. Now, if you are also into the part of servicing once the delivery is done, then even that comes into picture. So being able to connect all this and be able to say, okay, since I produced this product, this is what the output was. And if there are any issues at any point of time where customer comes back like, I want this to be fixed, there was some issue in the product, you can exactly know where the issue was so that you can go back to the production planning or the manufacturing process and understand, was there an issue in the quality or was there an issue in the process itself that lead to the failure, or where the client is coming back to solve the issue that has occurred in the product overall. So the digital thread helps you in going back to any step within the production process or the process of the, from the concept to the finished good, and be able to extract and understand uh, every detailed data or information about how it was made, what decisions were taken, and how it came out to the shop floor and to the customer's hand. Okay. And the whole thing happens through connecting the ERP, PLM systems, the CAD systems. And that's what the DTX is all about, the ability to connect systems and softwares that you have already in your organization and build this digital thread. And using this digital thread is what we will be seeing how the production planning can be done in few minutes as we go forward. And this overall integration or connectivity can be a bi-directional as well, or a real time, which basically means real time data transfer across. As soon as you create a bomb, it goes to the ERP system and also goes to the real concerned persons downstream in the shop floor. So all these things taken care of is what the digital thread is all about when it comes to details. So the very first prerequisite that we need to look at when the production planning is being talked about is that the very first thing that we need is the having the item master and having them associated with the CAD, the bill of material, and having the process plan defined for them. Before even the production start, these are some prerequisites that needs to be there. And that starts from the CAD part of it, all right? And also to an extent ERP, depending on how you work on, whether you are CAD first or your item first approach, okay? So if you're CAD first, you'll be creating the design, then you go to the ERP and create the item records and have all this BOM created. But if you're, you know, item first, then you would be creating item codes and probably have a pre bill of material. I would say like uh, it's a pseudo bill of material that's created with key components. Later, once design is done, you would update the whole overall completion of the form and then you go forward. So in that sense, depends on the whatever approach you take. Uh, the prerequisites anyway remains the same, where you need to have the item codes generated, have the item master, have the bill of material all created and connected to the system. Now, I'll do less of talking, and on the presentation, let me now show you how things work with the DTX directly. So let me just go to the window, just a minute. Let me just change the screen. So I was talking about the very first thing being the item. Let's look at how the items can be managed within DTX so that the initial part of the production planning is in place. So the very first thing that we can define is starting with the item code creation. All right. So we can define our own custom item code creation here. wherein you can go to say create template and you get plethora of options that you can pick from to define your pattern. So this is fully customizable. Okay, so you can define any, it could be text, number, auto sequence, which is basically running down, like a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4. You can define what it is. UID for if you want to have a very specific encrypted data point, saying that this is the uniqueness that you want to keep. Then you have year, month, date, confidentiality, which is basically drop downs, tags, which is to define a taxonomy based, nomenclature, and you can define based on user who's creating as well. So this allows you to utilize this sequence ID for not just for part numbering, but it could be for any other operation where you need a uniqueness and unique ID to be created for. But here today we will be more concentrating on the part of the ability to create it for the materials. Okay. So here I have one example that's been created. So you can see I have defined here, starting with the very first control list on the item category, followed by a item category, then a product class. And we are using also the tag mechanism and then followed by sequence ID. Now, how this all works is that when we create an item, we can go to the item master. So this is our repository where we have all our data with regards to the items required for the products to be built, right from the raw material, consumables, and to the finished product. Okay, this is where you will be storing everything. Now, if you don't have a ERP system, you can use our system of item master as a means to manage the item master. If you have a ERP system in place, you don't have to worry. We will sync this to the ERP system that you have, whether it's SAP, whether it's Oracle, whether it's TCS, or it could be MS Dynamics, anything. Okay, so even if there is Tally as well. Okay, because some of our, you'll be using Tally as a means to keep a repo of all your items. So it doesn't matter which tool it is. Uh, as long as it has API functionality, which we can easily get an understanding with the technical team that has provided you with the software. So we will be able to make this bridge and connect both of them. So whatever data is there would be present here. Now I'll come to why we do this connection and why would it be required to come DTX as we go forward in a minute. I'll show that in the SolidWorks part of it as we go forward. And here, everything related to material master would be stored. Also, we have resource master where you'll be able to store everything related to your machines, okay, which you need for the production planning. It could be the tools, the fixtures, the machines that you use, the CNC machines or any other machine that you use would be there. And also we have another master where you'll be able to store with regards to the vendors who are your suppliers or from whom you get data from, and also you will be able to manage the people, the operators that would be working on the shop floor, either them being on a contract basis or them being, on roll. Okay. Now, whenever I want to create new material, what I do, there are two ways of doing it. First, I'll show it here. The next one I'll explain in SolidWorks. So you can come here and you can see here directly that whatever mechanism I have defined in the sequence generation or the part number code creation is visible here as my ID. The moment I select this, it will give me the options, and I have defined it, saying that the very first option is my category, where I'm defining whether it's a raw material, finished good, semi-finished good, and another category that I've defined here. So let's say this is a semi-finished good, let's say, for example. Okay, then the next one is my subcategory, which is informing me whether this is a in-house or a bought out. This is semi-finished good that would be bought out. I can select this. Subsequently, there could be another list which is talking about a code that belongs to, okay, of the part code that it belongs to. So we'll pick the 12 here, and the tag being the material. So I can define what kind of material is this, okay, so that I can understand from this that this is what it belongs to. So I'll just say st, subsequently its child. So as long as you build a hierarchy based, I'll show you how this is being done also in a minute. So this is done. I'll just give it a name. Let me say this is a bearing that has been bought out from ST and followed by its one code that it comes with. Okay, I can define a measurement, a PLM ID if you have, otherwise you can define this based on that. Now, this is some of the basic information that we have. On additional to this, you can define more like material description, what can PLM ID or ERP ID, that we have. So if you have multiple systems where it is segregated in different data, with different IDs, we can map all them so that they're all connected. That's what I meant by digital thread. Irrespective how data is, you'll be able to come to know, okay, if it's called as, let's say, bearing in the design, but in the ERP, it's called with the specific code of the supplier, if it is being bought out, then we make a connection between these two and have all this data here so that we can come to know that when you say in the design that it's a bearing of so and so, the procurement team and supply chain would be easier to understand with the supplier code as well, that okay, this is what it means. The data that goes to them would be more meaningful to them when we do this transition. We define material group and whatnot, but we also have the ability to customize this. As you can see, the gate plant, which has been added by us and the custom way. So you can define this on your terms on what you need. Okay, let me just save this here for a minute. Now here we get the options that these materials also have life cycle, where you can define them being locked, obsolete, or released. Okay, and subsequently we'll come to this link workflow in a minute when we talk about the production planning aspect of it. So using this, we will be able to associate it to a workflow basically. The workflow is nothing but the route that the production plan would be taking as we go forward. Now, as I mentioned, the tags part of it, you can define any kind of tags. Okay, the taxonomy can be as extensive as you want. So this is what. So here I use SD. It has two options, MT and DD. So this is where it stops. If you want it to be more extensive, you can define it. Okay. So as long as you keep defining the tags, it will keep going as a hierarchy-based mechanism. Okay. So this is about the item master, and based on the item, we also will be able to create a bill of material. Okay, so you can maintain multiple sets of bill of materials. Okay, like here. So let me see if I can pick one which has multiple uh, bombs. Yeah, because here there are two different bombs here, which are basically coming from the plugin of the SolidWorks. Now that plugin I'll just show in a minute, and that plugin can we also have it for AutoCAD, BricsCAD, and if you have any other CAD also, we would be able to build that plugin for you where you can use that to build the bill of material diagram on a CAD in a minute, which I'll showcase. And you get all this version control. You can see all the various versions that were there previously, and you can also be able to control these having a lock obsolete release status. So using the release status with a workflow approval, we would be able to release it to ERP system directly if you have ERP. Otherwise, you can have a workflow and release it right here in the item, the BOM management of the DTX. And you also get a compare BOM function that basically compares the bill of materials between two versions. I can select this and say compare with ninth version. Uh, you can see this items that have been added, that have been removed. So you get a complete summary of this between these two. And you can also compare between another BOM variant that you have and see the complete difference between these two as well. Now let me just go to the SolidWorks part of it and quickly show you how the plugin, the overall item code creation, the BOM creation, the prerequisites of our production planning happens from the CAD interface. Okay. Now, if you might also have questions like whatever we are showcasing now is in the DTX interface, but let's say you have all your item code creation in your ERP, how does this play out? So in case you already have this mechanism in the ERP system, what we'll be doing is that since DTX is more of a digital thread solution, so it will connect with the ERP system and you can continue to create the item codes in ERP and later pull it through CAD. Or you want the flexibility wherein the designers can create it from the SolidWorks itself. But the rest of the team, because the procurement, purchase, and other sales team would be creating certain set of items for their purpose, which are required and would not be design centric. Okay, so those can continue to be there in the ERP system, and we will keep syncing the data so that irrespective of where it is being initiated from, whether we create it from the CAD or whether it's created directly in the ERP system, it would be unique and would be distinguished. So that we can define by sitting with your ERP system, understanding how it runs, and then customize this overall integration that is required. Okay, so just quickly, I'll not dwell too much on the details of how it's done in the CAD part of it, but I'll just quickly give you a glimpse on how it can be done for the bomb creation and everything. Okay, let me just take another model. Sorry. Yeah, so there's one question. So yeah, we'll come back to the questions, Sadanand, in the last, like we will have a specific Q&A session. I'll answer that particular question And I think as I go forward with the session, I think this will be answered to you in a minute as well. So this is a model that I have here with me, and we get a plugin directly within SolidWorks called DTX. Okay, and each user. So other thing that I missed to tell was that DTX is a cloud-based solution, a SaaS model. So it is per username and also it is yearly based. Okay. So let me just log in here quickly with one of the IDs. So based on each user, you get the credentials, and we can define whether he's an admin, he's a user, he's a viewer, or editor. So we have roles that we can define, and we can use, be able to control what actions they can perform when it comes to the uh, DTX part of it. And you can see here there are multiple options that we get. You get to upload the files because we also have a document section where you can upload them to the DTX and keep it there for sharing, which I'll explain a little later. But quickly coming to the part generation, if I want to generate any code or any item for this, I can do that. Whatever I showed you earlier in the browser, right? Creating a new material code can also be done right from the CAD. Okay, it links to the particular item code logic that we had earlier, and we can just come to custom list, select, and pick the relevant. Like if this is FG, this is in-house, and this being a code of 10 or 12, subsequently selecting the tag that it would associate with. So SD has a subsequent uh, code. And once you fill all this and say create, automatically a new code would also be created in the DTX immediately. And when it comes to the BOM creation, okay, so once the BOM is created, to create a BOM, what you can do is just say create BOM. Now here we have this BOM editor view. So let me just quickly explain what each of this has. So there are three sections to this. One starting the CAD structure, which is basically my feature tree, which is there in my SolidWorks CAD. My BOM editor is another window, okay, wherein I will be able to modify my BOM to whatever type that has to be there in my ERP or which needs to be going forward. So I can build all my variants right from here. Okay, so if you closely observe, okay, the items that are there here on the CAD structure and the items that are there on the BOM editor are quite a bit different. Reason being that I have removed certain items which are not necessary for my CAD here, okay, because I can just do that by selecting any of the items and let's say delete it and it would be gone. Let me do that to this carton, for example. Okay, so I'll say delete and you can see the carton is gone. So same can be applied for any of the models. Now, why we have done this is because you might have certain bought out, but by the design, you would have created it as a sub-assembly or a component. Okay, which is set of item, which is set of designs in it. But you don't need that for the competition, so you can just dissolve it and have it just the top level here using the delete option, and then you associate the required item code to the CAD part of it, and based on what is in item master. Okay, so the other thing that you can also observe is here that on the right, this is what all the item properties are coming from the item master, basically, which is within the DTX or within the ERP system that we are synced with. And all the data that you see here would be based on like all the material IDs, unit of measurement, which is all maintained in the ERP. So you don't have to worry about the data that is being populated here for creation. Okay. Uh, and we distinguish the assemblies or the components that would have a child to it associated as a product code in our system. So once you define product code, you get this plus icon which you see here on the BOM editor window right here. Okay, you see here. So this plus icon enables us to add new items below this. So if I have any sub-assemblies where I want to add more child, I just create an item code which has associated item code which has a product code to it, and then be like, this is assembly, and to this I want to add child. But for this example, I'll just select this and I say create a child. So you can see at the bottom, I got a new entry text box here. Okay. And I can just type in cartoon that I just deleted for the packaging purpose. And when I want to associate, I use a search bar. Now the search bar goes to the item master and search for the relevant item that I'm looking for when I type in the keywords. Okay. So I'll just select this interior. And you can see, I'll select this. Oh, okay. Sorry. I think my screen is not visible. Just give a minute. I'll just reshare. Sorry about that. Let me just quickly brief what I was talking about earlier. So the CAD Now, the BOM creation window has three sections to it. This is what I was talking about. The CAD structure being the part where you'll be able to see the structure as per the CAD directly. Let me just close this to show you that. So whatever structure you have here is what gets copied when you say create BOM, and in that the CAD structure is a copy of that. The BOM editor is where you'll be able to edit the bill of material in detail. So this is what the example I gave is like if you observe these two, there is a slight difference between the number of items on the CAD structure and the number of items on the BOM editor. The reason being, as I mentioned, is because some of the items have been deleted. The way I do that is I select any of the item which I don't want, and say delete, and that would be deleted directly. So let me just delete this cartoon again, just to show this. You can see that item of cartoon is now gone. Now, why we did this, because as I explained earlier, was that if you have any items that are bought out, but the CAD per se, you would be creating a structure and the CAD models to it. So you can eliminate those modifications that you do right now in Excel directly in this. You can just go ahead and replace that with one entry, dissolve the assembly and just have the top one. And then you can go ahead and associate the item code over here the right. Whatever you see is the data that is coming from the item master of your ERP or the DTX item master. And let me just quickly do this addition. So here in the assembly level, you can see this, there is a plus icon, and this is reason being that we have this product code thing over here, which indicates that this particular item has child. So if there are any codes here, that means that this has a child. And I'll just quickly add a cartoon back, which I deleted. The moment I say plus, click on the plus icon, I can see this at the bottom. I got this option to add. So what I'm doing here right now is I'm adding the consumables. So for you, it could be consumables. It could be something that you do not have a CAD per se, design in your CAD model that you want to add, which ideally would have done in Excel, would be done directly through here. So, okay. And how do I associate is that over here on the top, I have the search. Okay. If I search for the material that I'm looking for, so associate this, double click on this would associate. So you can see this particular cartoon has been associated with this. It gets highlighted when you select which item is to which one. Okay. And once I say create BOM, what will happen is this BOM gets created in the DTX. Okay. Let me just show that as well quickly. So just like this knee BOM, it would be created over here with all the child components with the RENI and everything across. So you can see all the items, and you'll be able to, just as I showed earlier, all versions will be tracked, everything, and you can compare, and all those things would be feasible, right? So that's about how we can create item codes. We just saw how we can create item codes from DTX that would help you in part numbering logic creation, then followed by having it synced with ERP if you have for the item master creation directly. So the moment you generate an ID, it would be creating an item data within the item master. And as I mentioned, if there are users who use it from the ERP side, they can continue to do that, and you can build the BOM. Now let's talk about the main thing that we have been come for the session, that is about the production planning. Now the prerequisites are covered, which are required for production planning. We have the items, we have the bill of material, and we have the item codes. The next thing that comes up is the ability to connect this to a route and be able to produce those items. Okay, so let me just go back to my screen again on the system. So over here, I have my items. And as I said in the beginning, we come back to the link workflow option once we have the items created. The reason being that here I can select which particular process plan does this, or the route that does this particular item follows. Now, coming to how do we define these routes is we go to settings, we go to workflows. And here you can see that we can define the full process that it would go through, like starting with material verification, machining, and assembly, right? So you can define each operation that it's going to perform. Okay, let me just show some details here. And you can define who is working on this, what is the duration of this work, whether it's in-house, outsource. So we capture this information to distinguish whether an in-house resource needs to be associated or an outsourced vendor has to be associated, so that you can track how things are being worked on. And you can select what particular machine group is being worked on, so that later when you're selecting the machine, you'd be only selecting that particular group as well. We also have options as we go forward here that you can define the tools, the labor that's required to work on this and everything. Okay. And this way you'll be able to define the whole process. We also have the QC check, wherein you can define at which stage you would be having a quality check done, and that quality check can again be having a form associated to it. So let me show that as well. So you can define checklists like this, where you'll define what this is for, and you can have multiple parameters. This is fully customizable. You can define multiple columns, you can define multiple rows, and you can define what each one is for. Let me just select another checklist here. Let me just edit this so that it will be easier to understand. So I can define this being the parameter that I'm checking for. The parameter I'm checking for is the uh, width. I can say this is a type of a width one. Okay. And this is color, if there's a color associated to it for the visual inspection. And uh, I think there's an echo. Okay. And we can define anything that else we want. And let me just delete this. I can name this particular column that since what it would be, this would be the expected results. Expected result. And this could be, I can define being in the range of
You're
between.
understanding it, huh?
And the color could be saying it could be grayish. And here you can define what the result should be. So results. So they can leave this blank result so that the QC guys can fill that particular input. Now, if you want to add more details, you can also define here. You can select whether it's a date, boolean, yes, no, and you can define however you want. We can have this customizability to that extent where you can define and update this across. Okay. I'll just say it's done. Define what the template is for and everything. You can customize this across. Now, followed subsequently to this, to initiate any of the production planning, you would need a job order to be created. And that's where we also have the forms with particularly job order forms that can be created. Okay. Let me just go to settings, check forms. Okay. Forms job order. Let me just quickly create one job order form. Now, every job order would also be following a particular sequence ID, but if you want to customize it, we can customize it to your means of doing it and the what of logic that the company follows. So we will define the handle. So you can define what is the due date for this job order to be done with. This is for a CNC uh, machine building. So the company that is requesting now here, this is where the vendor collaboration comes to picture. So if you have vendors with whom you work with, you can define them also here, saying that this operation is being done by the vendor, as I mentioned earlier. And also you can have the other part of this is that you can invite your clients as well as someone who would be able to view the progress that's going on if you mark them here. So all those abilities are there when it comes to the DTX form and vendor collaboration part of it. I guess the user when is expected start date of this. And I can here add the materials. Now you can see I can see the whole set of materials that are there in my system. But the ones which have linked to the workflow are only being showcased. So this way we'll be able to understand which materials are associated directly, and you can see them here, and you can filter across with the filter function. Okay, so for this I'll just select the CNC since we're going with that. This add this. I can define how many quantity are we building. You can add multiple. You can define what is the priority so that we have a optimizing tool with built into it like the scheduler. So what happens is that when you run this, it will look at the current capacity of your system. It will suggest what it would be needing to do and what the actions you can take to ensure that this happens based on the due date given here. So whatever due date defined here, it will do a back compute and say okay, to produce this machine based on the process that you have, based on the resources that you have, whether it can be achieved or not. If it can be achieved, by when it can be achieved. If not, then it will tell you what is the bottleneck at this moment. Okay. And then as a production planner, you would be able to take action on this by looking at this and then probably plan rest of your schedule and then do this job order again and go ahead and start working on it. So once I submit, what will happen is this will create an instance. I'll just quickly go through this process. And you can see here we have this tracking. Okay, since we are given two quantities, it will track based on each instance. Okay, let me go to the other dashboard. So here we have the item dashboard, which is linked to this job order form, which basically talks about all the items that are there in the production line, which have either been produced or which have been currently in progress. Now, currently, this job order form that I've created is more of a manually I'm going to update and do this, but in actual scenario, when it is being run at your factories or your plants, what we would be doing is that if you have IoT devices, then we will sync it to the IoT devices. If you don't have IoT device, what we can do is we can build a QR-based mechanism wherein every operator, every machine, every base on which the item goes, the raw material goes to be processed. Okay, and the item that comes out, okay, the product, semi-finished product that comes out of the machine could have a QR tagging to it or a RF tagging to it. That can be read by the system. We keep track of that and we come to know which process is done. So you would just need probably a tablet or a QR scanner or RFID scanners at your system or IoT devices deployed. That will help you to do this much more seamlessly. Okay. Right now, what I'm going to show is more of a manual process, but in actuality, it would not be manual. It will be more through the tablets and the scanning systems that would be in place. So I just have to, as a supervisor, I would just come to the tablet and I will say start this process. Okay. And herein I can keep track of each action, and you also get a QR. So the moment you scan this QR, what happens is that it actually opens the form, okay, directly, uh, and immediately you'll be able to come to this. So when you have multiple items running, you can use this QR as a means to see which particular instance is at which stage. Okay, let me go to this first instance. As you can see, this is all linked to that workflow route that we just saw a moment back, right? So it will be just the face stop. I need to define which resource. Since I defined a particular resource category, be allowed to select that. Then I can take next action and go forward with that as well. So as I keep going, it will keep track of the history that has happened. So here in the history, it will keep track what are changes done. And I can also go to the workflow particularly of this instance. Let me go to this and workflow. And I can see the history at each step. Now that it's come to this, I can go to this history as well and see what actions were done, who took it, and all those information would be here. Okay. Now coming, sorry, just a duplicate of this. The quick thing that I need to show you here is that now that we started the process, in between there is another the scheduling part of it that comes into picture. Okay. So what we can do when it comes to scheduling is that the moment I go to the job order form, okay, and I say create job order form. This is a bit in a different screen, but I get like this is how the process would work. So job order form we created, what is the quantity? So I can select which code I'm looking for. I can say I can write in the job order code free and being this how much is the quantity that we need to produce, and from here I'll be selecting which particular product that I'm building for. And we also have this goes through the BOM. Okay, this the next level that happens is that we associate a BOM that has been linked to this, which is created from the CAD. Okay, as you saw earlier. Then at the bottom right, you can see this gives a probability of this being working out. So it will tell you the order is key. We need to closely monitor. Why it is showing this warning is because we can see that assembly line, though it has a capacity, of uh, this 50 units per day already, a certain amount of is captured, so it says it's running at 80% capacity. So but the overall percentage capacity we need is 125. Okay, so it's already running beyond the limits. Same goes for the queue with regards to each step. Okay, whereas the machines are available, fixtures are available, but the queue is already occupied by the running machines where the common resource like being used across. Okay, and it will tell you a recommendation what you can do, followed by you can also flatten the BOM and you can have a preview of the overall items, okay, that you need to work with. And once this is flattened, you can also go through and see, what all items are there which requires to be purchased, which are already available. It will check the inventory, give you that information. So that's what this flat environment preview does. And the moment you go ahead and say put out the orders, it will create a purchase request here. You can see some have been created here, and you can see it's coming from the job order which is already existing. Let me just go to the job order to show you this. So this is the one that I can go to view. So against this is what is running right now. Okay. So you can see these have been ordered already and these are currently running. So all this information you get right here. Okay. Now, when it comes to the operators, we also have this labor management section wherein you'll be able to register a new labor directly, like define his name, details, quickly get him signed up. Okay, and you get a complete dash on how many are there, like the operators are available, how many are present today. So this is something that the security or someone of supervisor who's looking at the people available for today would interact and then we like mark them as active. It's again, as I mentioned, it's based on QR based or something where you just open a tablet, register who have come, and you can see how many are available. And of that, how many have been assigned, or what are they working, whether they are working on fabricating, are they are on the machining, or the tool operators, or assembly people, what it is. You can see all this data across. And you can see where they're working. If they're contract basis, you can come to know from which organization are they coming from. Okay, and for what action of the process they have been assigned to. So all these details you'll be able to see right here. Okay, and you can also get the history of when they were working, when they were not working, and if they worked, what they worked on. So there's a huge amount of data that can be collected and processed when it comes to this part of the scheduling, capacity planning, labor management aspect of the job order form. Okay, and once this is here, so now that I've started this process, so this is the next step. That once the calculation is done, we start the process. As I showed, we can see now here that since I started the process, I can see both the items which are ongoing. And this QR again, when you scan it, it would redirect you basically to the form. Okay, which is basically when I click on this, it will redirect me to this form where I can see what details are there on this job order and get the information. Okay. So far we talked about. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot one more thing to show. I just go back to that. And when it comes to the vendors, right? So this is another thing that we were looking at. So you can invite vendors directly. So we have a collaboration that can be done on our platform that allows you to share data with your vendors, suppliers, client. You can invite clients to view the data. Okay, and this all mechanism can work where you can have a approval workflow linked to it, like this, where it is reviewed, approved, and finally active. For any vendors where you need an approved vendor only to be listed within your list and have them associated. So you can define their details, and later you can also add material which they supply. Okay, and let's say they supply this, and copper wire, and I had these three items, and I can also define what is the average lead time, what is the minimum order quantity that we need for each of this. Okay, here you can see each item being defined, and subsequently can define what is the price that they give at a given defined quantity. Okay, and based on this, you'll be able to see this in the vendor list. And later, when you're doing a purchase order request, this data can be transferred, or this data can also come from the ERP if it's currently being managed. So the whole point of DTX would be creating a digital thread for a seamless operation. Okay, so that anything that you're currently doing manual would be digitized, so that you'll be able to have better traceability, better visibility of overall process that you have, and this link would be built across, so that you can plan and optimize it easily. So we saw how the capacity planning part of it was able to understand currently what is the capacity that's been occupied and what would be required. And it's actually doing a back computation based on due date. So if you change the due date, again, the computation would change based on, because each step you would have defined what is the time taken for the operation, for the procurement, what is the lead time that would be required, as we saw right now in the vendor part of it. So using all this data, which is there, it will do the computation. And you can do all this tracking as I showed. In the items you can see the current running items, and also in as you go to the each job order form, you'll be able to see at which step they are there. And we can build a dashboard also, which would be more of uh, for the so plant head or supervisor to see what is the daily activity going on, what's a weekly, what's a monthly, and how it looks in terms of planning, the capacity utilization. Is there any shortfall so they can come to know? So all those things can be done to reduce the overall bottleneck that would be there in the current process. Now, other things that DTX is good at is that it is built, as mentioned, the overall process about workflow automations, then system integration, the vendor collaboration. So I'll just quickly show what this vendor collaboration is also, that we can have a quick Q&A session after this. So in the vendor collaboration, in the vendor collaboration, what it happens is that if I have this data, so I can share also certain documents with the vendors. So you can see here currently, if I go to one of my projects, I have multiple projects here. Okay. Uh, okay. And in that, there is this feasibility document, and I have only shared this SolidWorks drawing with one of my vendors. Let me quickly switch to the vendor's ID. So the vendor ID is Sriganga. So let me just go to that ID over here. So once I log in, what happens is that I only see a certain set, like, here you don't see anything at all because I'm currently as a vendor. But when I switch to my parent, which is basically our organization here, so you can see only certain set of data available. If I just put it across as a comparison, uh, let me just show it to you here onto this. And just to compare, you can see the number of modules that are over there here and the one here are quite different because we only give the data which has been shared to them. And if I go to any of my documents here and I say project, you can see only one project being shared. Reason being that only one project data has been shared and I can only see this document. The vendors can also put annotations here. So you can see there are certain set of annotations that we have already put across. Okay. And you will be able to mark them saying change this motor, update this whole dimension. So whatever updates are done by the vendor would be real timely visible to you, and you can see all of them here in these various versions at the bottom. Okay, you can see this difference in each of these versions, that this motor change and the whole update is not here. So not only this, we also have project planner where, currently if there are any particular activities shared and you're tracking with the vendor where he needs to work, you can also share those tasks. You can create a whole project plan within your organization, and you can mark these two particularly for the vendor, and you will track how much progress done. You can update a timesheet for these two, saying whether how much of work time he has spent, get a complete report on how it's running. If I come to this, I'll show you the actual project plan that's here. So you can see this is the extensive full project plan that's over here, but of those, only two of them were shared, which is basically the bomb and another, I believe, was to define a mold preparation. Okay. So the mold preparation, the embalm, these only tasks that have been shared, whereas the rest of the tasks which is being planned within the organization is not shared to them. So this way we keep the data all secured and everything, and you'll be able to do this activity. The other thing that for production planning would be useful is forecasting that we have. So depending on each project, okay, so you can also associate a BOM. Okay, you can see here, let me just go to the CAD for everything here. So you can see here the BOM that I've associated, which was created earlier through the plugin. Okay, and once this is defined, it will also give a prediction on which particular item would be needed. Let me just go back a little bit here, change the states. January 1st. So here you can see all the data that's out here saying when and what we need to. You can see this head assembly would be required over here, and it shows correctly what is in continuity is 0, forecast is 1, so projection is -1. So we can have triggers defined as the moment it goes below the minimum quantity required within the store, it will trigger notification, and all these things can be done with our system over here. Now, other things that we are also looking at is the integration of AI. So one of our tools in this capital planning is using one of the LLMs that are available. Yeah, so using the existing AI tools to enhance the ability to capacity planning also, and also the search. Now, some of the search that we have already worked on and a concept is available is on the item search. So if you give a fuzzy outlet saying that I'm looking for a water outlet pressure, and it will go through your entire item master database and tell you which is the closest. This helps in reducing the errors, duplicates, and new creations. So since it's going through your entire database and give you based on whatever minimum data, like key critical information of the product that you give, it will tell you this is the closest item available. So that will ensure in reducing the duplicacy and the unnecessary item code creations from the users. We also have in the bomb search. So if you're more of a project based where your products are almost like 50% similar or more than 50% similar, you can give the bomb to our search and it will go through your entire database and say, okay, based on the items and the structure it follows, this is the closest bill of materials available within the system. And then you can probably go to that project, get that CAD item, and then start working to reduce the overall design cycle time. Okay. So these are some things that we have. Before we get to the questions that been asked here in the chat, I would request you to quickly scan this QR and give me a feedback. Like we're just collecting this feedback for our improvement for future sessions. So I would request you to just take a minute out before we close with the Q&A session to fill this form and help us out with this feedback form. Okay, now I'll just keep this feedback form open for a few more minutes. And meanwhile, there are a few questions that have come across. One is, okay, starting with the very first question that was asked earlier by Sadanand with regards to possibility of connecting with SolidWorks to get the BOM directly. So I hope during the session, as a showcase using the plugin, we can create the BOM and the variants directly from the CAD with the ability to modify to meet any kind of variant. It could be engineering, manufacturing, procurement BOM being created through the plugin. I would have answered your question. If you have any other questions that, please put it in the Q&A session. I'll look at it and see if we can answer that. Uh, there is also another question from Sadanand, that is it possible to check all the summary of our owner? Sadanand, if you could just put out a detail, like in what context are you talking about the owner in this, to understand and probably give you a better answer to that. We have one more question from Chetan asking, in the employees detail, will it help us to measure the KPIs of each employee? Now, if you're talking about the on-roll, like see, currently the management of the user that we had or the employee was more on the operators, okay, for the production planning aspect of it. But if you're asking with regards to the entire organization employee KPI, that no, that we would not be doing, because our system is not a CRM system per se. Okay, so it will not be for every employee KPI like that, but our is more on concentrated towards the operators and the on-job or the contract-based people who work at the shop floor, where you want to track and understand and plan your production. That's where we would help you to do it. Okay. There's another question from Ankur. Share the video of it also, if demo of any feature software provided in AI domain in production planning. So today's session, what we saw was on the use of this, the capacity planning part of it that we saw, right? Let me just quickly show you that window for a minute. Let me just go back. Let me just create one. So whatever you're seeing this capacity feasibility check right now, right on the screen, is basically being using one of our trained models that we have, where that uses the AI as a means to understand how much, what is your production planning route, which we saw earlier here in the route mapping, right? So once you define this route map and define the time, define the resource required, the group of resources required, it will do that analysis, and that's where it's giving. So this is where the OAI domain we use for production planning comes to picture at this moment. And if you want any other detailed demos, we'll reach out to you, Ankur, after the session. For our team of marketing and sales will reach out. We can probably have a one-on-one to understand how we can help you in incorporating digital thread and AI in your organization. There's another question, Anand, about details regarding the projects. So, if you're asking about the project planning aspect of it, yeah, we have the ability to create project plans, then also schedule them, have more view on, let me show this. So you get the more details on critical path and everything that we have. Project. In the master level, you'll be able to see complete resource utilization of the users, particularly. Let me just skip to the start of. You can see here how each user is associated with multiple projects can be seen. If I go to the Gantt of it, we'll get more matrices on something called as cost and SPI, which we do. So basically, SPI tells you how the performances of the project. If it is closer to 1, it is doing very good. If it is close to 0, that means that it's not doing that well. Now, this is because here you can see based on time sheet, I have explicitly given that this task is getting delayed by almost a month or so. So for that reason, that our SPI is looking bad. You also get a cost based on the BOM attached. You get to see the critical path, and if you have any other KPIs to be calculated, we can do that in the dash. I hope that answers your questions, Sadhana. We have one more from Joshi. Like, can you explain where AI used in this production plan? I hope the earlier session, like just a moment back, I showcased how we are using the AI part of it here for the monitoring and understanding how the production plan has, where all it is having bottlenecks. Okay, based on the resources that helps you in understanding this. Yes, Chetan. So currently the KPI that we talked about is only for the operators and the labors that you would be having as on roll or on the contract basis for the production planning. It is not there for the entire organization employees per se, like the designers and the other users that would be then organized like HR and everyone for the KPI. But let's say you have a system where already certain inputs are being captured in your existing system and you want to view the KPIs as a dashboard. That's something that we can help you in building a custom dashboard for you where you can get all this data from your existing system and see the whole KPI metrics in a more meaningful way. So another question from Ankur is that is the model trained on our data of your inputs or can be trained with our past data? Now, currently, see, the model has been trained by our data set that we are given. We can surely look at training it with based on your past data as well. So I'll just wait for another minute to see if anyone has any other questions that you can put it in the Q&A for us. Okay. Thank you so much for your time today. Uh, Please fill out the feedback form. I humbly request you to fill this because it's very important for us to know and improve ourselves for future sessions where we can help and understand what products could be helping you because as I told, TX is a homegrown product and we would like to serve our customers with best possible technology that's out there currently available in the market. So a feedback form with the details would help us a lot. I see only 6 people have filled the feedback form. I request the rest of the audience also to kindly scan this QR and fill the details. It's a request from our end. And we will be reaching out to you. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to the marketing email through which you got the invites, or you can also reach out to me on following email ID of mine and my number. So if you have any questions, we will help you in for providing you the possible best solution that we can have to help you with any operational and organizational processes streamline that you are looking at. We have a question from Prakash asking which company you have implemented this. So currently this production planning with all the new AI thing is currently new, but we have worked our POC with a couple of customers in valve industry. Okay, so that's where we trained our model for them and did a POC. So it's not currently being implemented anywhere as a full-blown solution. It's a new product that we have just launched a couple of months back. But if you're interested in looking at how the solution can help you, we can surely work with you and probably reach out to you to have a concept built around your organization, how and their products. Uh, there's a question on the cost. Sadanand, we would reach out to you on one-on-one to discuss the cost because it's a module-based solution. So depending on the module that you take, we can talk about the cost. in on our session. We would reach out to you, sir, for sure after this call. All right. Thank you all for your time. Hope to connect with you all again to see how we can help you in anything. Please reach out to us at any point in time, any kind of automation that you're looking for or improving the operation in the process across your organization. Thank you so much.